All right. Hello there, John. Thank you so much for joining us. To those of you listening, this is going to be a really, really good conversation because a lot of people, when they're getting started in the world of video, one of their primary hangups is they really don't like the way they sound. I know for me, that was one of my big things. And until now, I didn't really think there was much you could say about that topic other than, yeah, well, just get over it. But John here can speak to us on this topic. So in this conversation, we'll be talking about, getting the mindset right, but we'll spend also a lot of time talking about how to prepare yourself for a video so your voice sounds the best. We'll talk about how to, adjust your voice, whether you're trying to change elements of your voice over time or even maybe trying to minimize an accent you have over time. And, even how things like posture can affect it. We'll be talking about, of course, recording equipment and how to get the best sound quality out of whatever equipment you have. And we'll even talk about, how the way you use your voice can change the impression you give people and kind of, what people think of you after watching your video. So going to be an awesome interview here. Before we get to all that, John, could you kind of introduce yourself to us, explain who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Jonathan. Well, I've been a voice coach here in the San Francisco Bay Area for the last 25 years, and primarily working with singers. I worked with Raz Kennedy and Seth Riggs. He had 120 Grammy winners. But I've also been working with public speakers, and I've trained some of the people that are very high up in Toastmasters. And I've got an office in San Francisco that is sitting vacant. I got my key beginning of February, so I haven't actually done any sessions in there. So meanwhile, I've been doing a lot of Zoom work. And me and my partner, Rogero, we coach people on how to look good on video, how to sound great on video. And so that's my work right now, just really helping people with the sound of their voice and how to get their message across.
Perfect. Well, again, thanks so much for taking the time to be on this call. One of the first things that I think we'll cover is for people who just don't like the way they sound, right? First off, why is it seems like everybody hates the sound of their voice on camera? And then what can you kind of adjust maybe in your mindset, or what can you do to get to the point where hearing yourself on camera doesn't bother you so much?
Yeah, I get that a lot too. I think that a lot of it has to do with just familiarity. If you're shooting a video for the first time and you listen back, it can be shocking. People can just be very surprised at what they sound like. And it's kind of understandable because it's not a very accurate representation of how you really sound. The mic is picking up your voice from out here, but when you're talking, you're hearing yourself through your face, your nose, your body. So it's a really different sound. So the first thing that you want to do is just try to put all judgment aside and get used to listening to yourself. I think you could, just set your phone and voice memo and just resolve that for 5 minutes a day, you're going to record your phone calls and get used to how you sound. It begins to kind of reach an equilibrium where you sort of expect how it sounds. You can also, if you're hosting a Zoom meeting, just hit that record button and watch the video. Listen to how you sound. And then you do have to kind of, if you've developed a negative view, like you're saying, I don't sound good, you really do want to challenge that. And you might bring it up to a friend, because sometimes just talking to somebody else, say, what do you think? Do I sound bad, or what is it? And chances are you sound fine. You're just nervous, not used to it. And then finally, if you decide that, maybe you have some voice issues, maybe there is a crack in your voice. So in that case, you want to work with a coach.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can certainly attest to that. While I still don't like the sound of my voice in recordings, it doesn't hurt as much as it used to. I remember the first time I was a guest on somebody's podcast, when the podcast launched, I think I listened to it in the shower one morning, and I was horrified and humiliated and embarrassed. And I didn't want, obviously I didn't actually say this, but part of me wanted to call her and say, don't post that interview. It was terrible. I can't let people hear what I sound like, which of course is ridiculous because everybody knows what I sound like. I just don't know what I sound like. So yeah. It does get better with time, I guess.
Yeah. And also, this idea of objectivity is very subject. Sometimes with a voice client, I go to a concert and I'd see this amazing response from an audience and just tremendous energy. And then I hear from them 2 days later and they're like, John, I listened to the recording. It's so bad. They're so depleted. And so you really do want to establish a positive narrative for how you sound. And to, even if you find yourself getting critical, just notice that critic and redirect. And so we're going to make you like the sound of your voice.
Yeah. Something else, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's my understanding that when you are in a kind of a fear response, right, when your brain perceives a threat and you're feeling a lot of fear, that changes you physiologically. And one of the things that changes is, aspects of your muscle tone. So I believe that when you're actually experiencing fear, your voice does sound a little different than when you're relaxed, just because like the muscles in your throat are a little bit different. So, I mean, if that's wrong, you can call me out on it. But the question there is, if you're experiencing some of that stage fright, if you're experiencing some of that fear and you're thinking, oh no, the fear I'm feeling is going to affect my voice, any advice on how to kind of work through that and silence that fear so that, your vocal cords can do what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, definitely. I remember sitting on the couch with my brother, and he was talking in front of a large group, and I could just hear in his voice, he was kind of breathing like, and so I think breathing is very important. And for myself as well, I'm a little nervous now on the podcast here. And I can remember just recently watching a webinar that I had done, and I listened to it and I thought, I sound kind of nervous. It sounds like I was giving a little more than I should have. But I think the key then to getting out of flight or fright is breathing. So you can just stop, notice the contour of your breath. Sometimes in a public speech, the speaker might actually stop for a minute and really take a pause. And that helps you regain your center. So I think to somehow, you don't want to overthink your breathing, but using the breath as a way to kind of bring your energy down if you're in fright is helpful.
Yeah, and remember, those pauses are never as long to other people as they seem to you. It's okay to take that time. All right. All right, so that's good. That's good on the mindset. Let's move on a little bit more to, things you can actually do in the moment. You're about to record a video and you want to make sure your voice sounds the best. What are some exercises, some warm-ups that you've, taught with people and done with people to help make sure your voice is the best it can be as you're about to record this video in the moment?
Okay, great. Well, in the speech world, probably the number one warm-up is the lip trill. And it's also known as a secondary resistance exercise because your vocal cords are the primary resistor of air. But if you're trilling your lips, it sets up a secondary resistance, and it's kind of good for your vocal cords. It kind of depressurizes them. So, hey, I'm going to do a lip trill. Jonathan, would you be up for trying to try lip trill as well? Let's warm up.
I don't know if I've ever done one. All right, but I'll try. I'm game.
It may or may not work, but let's assume that everyone else that's listening is going to try one too. So you just say,
all right, we're in it together.
Bubba. Can you get your lips to fill in?
All right. Bubba.
There you go. Now, we're aiming for as much sharpness as you can get on your vocal cords. Like if it wasn't sharp, but if it's sharper, it gives it more voice. Can you find more voice?
All right, let's try it. Nope.
Good. Okay, now you're going to have some fun with your kids when you finish the podcast. You get them to do it. You can, if you really want to look ridiculous, you can also pull on your cheeks, and kids just eat that one up. But seriously, folks, you can get a much better vocal tone. In fact, I feel a little fresher vocally having done the lip trill. Hi. Yes. Okay, so that was number one. Number two, you can do the same thing with your tongue for a tongue trill. Can you do a tongue trill, Jonathan?
I'll do that.
Hey, that's it. Excellent. And then you're kind of seeking that center of tone. See if you can make it loud.
So you're going up and down with the pitch?
A little bit, yeah. Maybe a bit of a siren.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So that's number two. Now, the third exercise, which is called the M sound, and it's mmm, mmm.
My 1-year-old daughter makes that sound every time we put a piece of food in her hand. She's learned that you say
Mm.
for food.
Yeah. So here, I'll just give these now. I'm not going to force you to repeat them. But the idea here is to strengthen your vocal cords. So you can think of your vocal cord like it's like a string, kind of a chord, but it's actually something with three-dimensional mass. They're also known as folds. So your vocal folds, your vocal cords are kind of the essence of what's happening. You also have resonators that make a big impact too. But for people who have trouble with their voice, it's often the vocal cord that is the problem. So with these exercises, you're aiming for a vocal cord that feels clean, and that doesn't feel breathy, and that doesn't feel crackly. And you can hear different speakers are going to have different characteristics of their voice depending on this degree of edge on their voice. Once again, if you've got too much edge, it's crackly. And people get what's called a double tone. It's hard for me to do a double tone exactly. Or if you've got not enough edge, breathy, and you kind of, don't really get your point across. So you're seeking to find a clean sound that has edge. And so there's what you're trying to do with your vocal warm-up is establish that balance and that edge on your voice.
Awesome. Something that I've noticed is, if you give me two videos, one video of a person they've recorded for their website, introducing themselves and offering to help visitors of their website, right? With something spoken to the void, something spoken to the world. And if you gave me a separate video, this one recorded kind of a personal video message only for one recipient, also welcoming them and offering to help, I guarantee you I could listen to those two videos and tell you which one was spoken for the void and for the world and which one was spoken for an individual. The way I would word that is just, do you sound natural, right? Or does it sound forced? And it's strange. Like I myself even experience this. I've done thousands and thousands of videos, but even myself, when I do a video for my LinkedIn page or video for a group of 500 people I'm sending an email to, I notice that my voice changes and it doesn't sound natural. It sounds forced. So is there any way that you can make your voice be natural and speak on a one-to-one basis instead of speaking like you're talking to a crowd? Is there any way to force that or no?
Well, that is the big issue, right? Because it boils down to authenticity. And I think what you're saying is so true, that if you pretend that you're not talking to the camera, but you're talking to your best friend. Because I look forward to connecting. I've got a Zoom call tomorrow with my friend Margina, and I haven't seen her in a long time. And I am not nervous about connecting with her. But, for doing an interview or something like that, I can feel my adrenaline level kind of kicking up a little bit. But I always, enjoyed your videos, and I've been looking forward to meeting you. So I'm just kind of really trying to be one-on-one with you. Now, having said that, there's a technique that professional athletes use. And it's a kind of a coaching technique that we call power performance. And they found that the top level athletes all had the same physical ability. They were all super fast, super strong, very coordinated, but there was a certain class that won consistently. And those, they found out that they didn't think. When they asked them, well, what do you think about when you serve and you get those aces? And John McEnroe would say, I have no idea. My mind is blank. So mind like water, or mindfulness, has to do with getting into the sweet spot of being able to perform. And particularly for public speakers or singers, or anytime you're doing something where the pressure is on, you want your mind to be like water. Now, what happens for most people when they step on the stage and they begin to talk is the critic voice comes in. And so I'm on stage and I'm saying, hello, My name is John Scott. I'm a voice teacher, and my subtitles, what's really going on is I'm really nervous. How do I look? What's this person thinking? And so this sub-narrative is what we would call interference. So you have interference, bad, awareness or mindfulness, good. So then how do we get into awareness and away from interference? And so what power performance coaching does is it has you first give voice to the interference. So you actually have to work with another human being, and you have to say, I feel totally nervous. I look bad. My hair is going this way. And you just have to be honest about what the interference is and the kind of bad psychic messages you're feeding yourself. And then once you've given we call it the interference narrative, you choose some kind of awareness to focus on. And it could be something as simple as rubbing your fingers together. So, Jonathan, rub your fingers together, and you might feel that they get warmer, and you might feel a little bit of sweatiness. Now, if you begin to now talk and distract yourself with the sensation in your fingers, you lose the interfering narrative. You go into a different place of your brain, really, where you're in awareness and not interference. And so then when I ask a client, I say, how did you do? It's a trick question. If we've already done the interference narrative and I've given them a topic to focus their physical awareness onto, and I ask them, how did you do? What I want them to say is, I have no idea. But usually they'll still say, well, I did good on this and I did bad on that. It's kind of like we're giving a talk and we're judging ourselves in real time, like an ice skating competition. And we say, I just said something. Great, that was an 8. And I just really said something that was so stupid. That's a 1. We're kind of trying to multitask at the same time. And so that's what we don't want.
So you're suggesting that, as you're recording the video, you can find that thing for yourself, right? Maybe it's rubbing your fingers together, maybe it's twirling a pen in your fingers, just something physical to just eat up that extra mental bandwidth that was going towards negative thoughts is now tied up in this physical thing. And then it's just the main task at hand is, the main focus. And then your kind of extra energy is absorbed in this small physical task and there's nothing left over for negative thinking. Is that the idea?
Exactly. Yeah. Other good areas of awareness to focus on are tension in your neck and shoulders. Because usually when you're in fight or flight, the head pushes forward and we lock our shoulders, kind of like we're getting ready to be struck with a rock. So another important aspect of speaking on camera, public speaking, singing, acting as well, has to do with what we call the Alexander technique. And have you ever heard of that?
No, not at all.
Okay. Well, the person that I rent an office from the city, Lisa, she's a teacher of Alexander technique. And it's a bodywork technique, a standard practice. If you were going to go to a conservatory of music for singing, there would be an Alexander technique teacher full-time on staff there. There happens to be a pretty robust community of Alexander teachers here in the Bay Area, but it's usually for the higher level actors and musicians and public speakers who are using this technique. Basically what it is, if you go in for a lesson, you're going to walk in and you're going to go onto a massage table at first, and the Alexander technique instructor is going to actually enlarge your spine and help your whole body to stretch out a little bit. And the reason is tension in your neck interferes with the way that your brain interfaces with your spinal stem. So when you're nervous and you're pushing your head forward, or if you've just been at the computer all day like this, you don't think and act as well. And so with the Alexander technique, you learn to balance your head on your spine. And you have a much subtler range of motion. Primary control is the relationship between your head and your neck and spine. but there's other forms of control that radiate out through your body. So the whole point of this, going back to how to be mindful, is you might want to choose awareness of your neck and just ask this question, how am I doing with my shoulders? And if you just blank your mind and balance your head on your shoulders and focus your attention there, that can help.
That's interesting. Huh.
Different.
Yeah, I never knew what the Alexander technique was. All right. Is there anything else? So let's make this, keep looking at this long term, right? Long term, if there's something about your voice you don't like, maybe you're breathy, maybe you're two-tone, whatever you said, that other one was, right?
Double
Maybe
tone, yeah.
double tone. There we go.
It
Double
sounds
tone.
like two-time. I don't like that as much. Double tone.
There we go. Double tone. Or maybe your voice is a little too high, too low, and you want to make any, adjustments to it in the long term. Is there any sort of exercises someone can do regularly so that, 2 years from now, without thinking, they can be speaking with a slightly different voice?
Totally. And it's kind of a personal thing. I think that, I developed online voice programs starting in 2008, and it never really took off for me. I had friends that were famous that did that, and so I kind of mimicked them, but for me, it didn't really fly as well. And I took away as that the reason was that we're kind of meant to interact. I think that we're supposed to be in real time when we're singing. It doesn't work so well with singing, voice instruction, etc., to do it what I would call asynchronously. It's better to work with somebody where you do something and then they say, that's good, do it like this, and there's a nice interchange. But having said that, if you want to improve your vocal technique, there's a whole world to it, right? There's thousands of us voice coaches, and all around the world, we're teaching people how to use their voice. And it's been happening for a long time. I mean, the Italians had it down the best. They passed it on to the Europeans, and it came out to the US. And voice teachers are like cats. They don't follow leaders well. Everybody kind of has their own thing, and it's hard to get us to agree on stuff. Having said that, go on YouTube and type in voice lesson, maybe voice lesson for speech. You are going to find thousands and thousands of teachers, thousands of hours of instructions. So that's easiest and free. Now, of course, it's better if you work with a live coach. So, you can work with people over Skype. I've been working with people over Skype for more than 10 years. It's not as good as in person, but I think you get 75% of the value of a voice lesson remotely. So, I think that it depends again on the chemistry and your bandwidth. So if you want to develop your voice long-term, I would recommend learning about speech, and I would recommend practicing singing. Get yourself a few songs, practice singing along with them. That is going to exercise your voice in a much more profound way than just talking a little bit.
Yeah, I never would have thought you could really change your voice noticeably. I figured you just got the voice you got, deal with it. But it sounds like that's not the case.
Yeah, there's one last thing that I think can have a profound effect, and that is with this jaw tension. What happens a lot of the time is if the jaw is tight and closed, then a lot of the sound reflects onto the nose. And if I can talk like this, you can hear, so we would call that a nasal tone. Opening your mouth more is actually really hard. It's hard to get used to a mouth that hangs open more. But one thing you can do is you can use a prop, a piece of candy, a cork, or something, or even just a finger. Create some space between your teeth, and then practice your diction. So for instance, I'm going to just use my teeth. I'm going to say la, la, da, da, ta, ta. So that I'm talking through an open mouth, and I'm getting used to using my tongue in a more dramatic fashion. Then we can become more articulate.
That is really interesting. So for me, the the self-talk that always runs through my head when I do hear myself on camera is that, oh man, I do sound so nasally. So I wonder if I focus on opening my mouth more in my videos, if that would change the bit of my voice.
I think it definitely could. And you do have to just let the jaw hang for a while. Be mindful of your Alexander technique, so your head is nicely on your spine. And then say, my, and let the jaw swing open. My.
My.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Does
Yeah.
feel different.
Cool.
All right then. Um, Thank you for that. Is there anything, again, something else I run into with people who are, using videos? A lot of people have an accent and they're afraid that will make it hard for people to understand them, or maybe there'll be some kind of barrier where people don't connect with them as well. Is there any way that you can, work on minimizing an accent over the long term?
Definitely. And it always interests me when I hear somebody talking who's an immigrant, but they don't have an accent. Like I had a conversation with a sales representative in Germany. He sounded completely American to me. But then there are other people who have been holding on to their Irish accent for the last 6 years. So I think there is some intention there. And there is a very well established discipline, and they call it accent reduction, of specialists that do that. I actually am not trained in accent reduction. For instance, Lisa, the person that I rent from, she's like the world pro at it. But I would say that it can be done as simply as this. Listen to somebody speaking who has the accent that you want. Like, let's say you want to be working from Microsoft. So listen to a talk that somebody from Microsoft gives. Feel their pacing, feel their intonation. You could even get so careful as to count how many words per minute they're using. A lot of it is just mimicry, really. Mimicry is how children learn. You're looking at your son, you say, da, da, and eventually they go, da, and you're like, yes. So mimic somebody whose accent you want to reflect. And then the most important part, listen back. How does your voice sound? Break it down to vowels. Are we saying ah, e, a, o, or u? Every language is going to have hidden cues about certain vowel sounds and certain consonants. So you can make progress by listening to who you want to sound like, listening to yourself, and bouncing back and forth and just mimicking. And then if you really are serious about it, work with a coach.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know that was even a profession, a thing, but it's good to know that accent reduction is a thing that's out there. So that's cool.
It's big here in the San Francisco Bay Area because we have so many people from all over the world.
That's awesome. All right. Now, kind of moving off the body a little bit onto just equipment and setup and stuff of that nature. First question I have for you is, using someone's current equipment. So in my case, it's a little, a microphone on my headset. Some people might be using a microphone built into the computer. Of course, a lot of people are using the microphone on their smartphone. What are some tips and techniques that you can suggest of how to make sure you're getting the best sound possible out of whatever existing equipment you have?
Yeah, okay. Well, I definitely recommend using an external mic. It can be pretty simple if you just set yourself up with a USB mic. A USB mic plugs directly into your computer and it's freestanding, so you can set it either in the frame of the video or outside. And then when you're on your Zoom call and you click on the mic button, you can just select it and Zoom will automatically sense, every audio option that you have. So I would just go on Amazon and look at the ones that have, 4,000 reviews. I think that a good USB mic runs in the range of $40. The last thing about microphone and audio is that if you're talking to a mic that's closer, like a headset mic or a boom mic, you want to watch out for your P's and B's. So it's easy to pop a mic and you can really feel it if you're, talking to a stadium or something like that. It's harder to perceive it on Zoom because you're not getting the amplification. But if you put your hand in front of your face right now and say, pop, you're going to feel a burst of air. Now, that is no big deal, but if a mic hits that, it's an explosion in the audio world. So make sure that your P's and B's aren't going direct into your mic. Sometimes we'll use a sock over a ring that we call a windshield. But usually my mic here is about 2 feet away, so I don't need that. And you can just, if you're using a headset, point your mic down towards your chin, and then you're not going to get a P or a B. So there you go.
That's so cool. I've been having this headset for like 3 years now, and I always put it like right in front of my lips, and I'm sure I've been putting a lot of, rough P's and B's on it. So it's good to know that I should just tilt it away just a hair.
Yeah.
It's so cool. All right. So thanks for information about the getting the best sound quality. I think the last thing we'll kind of talk about is, depending on how you choose to use your voice, do you speak, depending on, for example, do you speak in the higher range of your comfort zone or the lower range of comfort zone? What kind of intonation do you end each sentence with? How fast do you speak? Stuff like that. I think it gives people different impressions of the type of person you are based on some of those choices you make about your voice. So can you kind of walk us through what some of those variables are that we can kind of control in how we speak? And then, of course, the outcome of the perception that might be created by that variable of how we're speaking.
Sure. The rule of thumb, if you're giving a talk or presentation, is that you want to use the lower end of your voice. You wouldn't want to come in on a high pitch, because depth reflects authority. So having said that, a good degree of pitch change in your voice is a good idea, particularly if you have a certain idea. A certain idea can be distinguished with pitch. You just set up a certain pattern where we're generally down here, and all of a sudden you say, wow, this is my main idea. So with pitch and rhythm, we set up a pattern, we get people used to the pattern, and we break. Then we deliver the big idea. And so with pitch, questions, do you think? Leave a rising pitch. Pitches going down, put the end on the sentence. So we can actually think of it too in terms of general energy. If we're trying to motivate people, bring them up, we can use the sound of our voice to match the word that we're trying to emphasize. And I've been listening to different public speakers on the news and just listening to speech patterns with people who are talking about public health and the coronavirus. And it's amazing how pitch is used with everybody very naturally, but I think it's very, very important to study the voice of the person that you want to connect with. So I'm always really big on this idea of resonance, and not just personal resonance as a speaker or singer, but resonance within a group. And this question, is my message resonating with my people? And that question is going to get answered a lot by, who are your people? And so it's going to be totally different if you're a startup pitching to venture capitalists than it is going to be if you're talking to your friends and telling a story at a bar. And so you want to listen, especially let's say you're doing video, you're probably more in the business world. That's kind of what I'm focusing on right now. You want to think about who is your audience and what do they sound like? And just mirror their speech patterns, because people like who they like. If you become like those people who you're addressing with your speech patterns, it's going to be easier for them to listen to you and easier for them to trust you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all that. My head is still spinning right now, thinking of all the things you said. So it'll take me some time to digest this. So I'm sure a lot of people, probably like me, are realizing just how much more there is to this world of, voice than they even realized. And I think for a lot of people, it'd be very empowering knowing that they actually have some ability to control, their voice. Because again, that's a big hang up for a lot of people. So for those people who want to get in contact with you or learn more about you, I mean, first off, can you tell us just like how to get in contact with you, but also what kind of things you have going on, what kind of projects you're working on that people could get involved with?
Yes, thank you. Hey, one of the easiest ways to reach me is to send me a text. And we're here in the 510 area code in San Francisco. And my number via text is 859-7464. So I'd love to, any questions you have, send me a text. If you're interested in doing some coaching or, you want to learn more about voice or video, or whatever, my partner and I, Rogero, are doing free webinars. And these webinars are really fun, safe, supportive, kind of almost play-like environments where we coach people on how to use their voice and how to speak on camera. Rogero is a screen acting coach in London, and we've been just having a blast meeting every day, talking about how we can help people and interfacing with different business owners. We work with salespeople, SDRs, and trying to help people shoot their own video. So you don't have to, you can just, like you're doing, you set up your camera, make it simple, and talk. And sometimes there's like an activation edge where it's like that first video is like, oh, so difficult, and maybe there's problems with it, getting you through those first few iterations and getting to the point where you can talk naturally to the camera.
Cool. Yeah, I actually participated in a webinar like that with John and Ruggiero, and I can tell you it was a lot of fun. And it was very interesting to kind of see just in that 1 hour's time, how people's voice changed and how their comfort on camera changed just in the space of a short amount of time. So I definitely do encourage you, you take John up on that offer and check out what he and Ruggiero are doing.
Thank you so much. And it's John Scott Speech is the website. So all our stuff is on there. And if you're on LinkedIn and you send me a connection, I will also send you some free audio skills. So, we do some of these warm-ups, and it kind of helps to have something on your phone that you can just click and say, do this. And I got a whole bazillion of these audio workouts in my library, so I'm happy to share them.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for that offer, and thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's been awesome.